Hello, everyone. Hello, Dr. Arnold. Welcome to my macrohistory book review presentation. Um, for this project, I chose Shaping Language Policy in the US, the Role of Composition Studies. The book is written by Scott Weibel. He is an associate professor of English at University of Maryland. Okay, let's dive into it. So before we go into the chapter descriptions and everything, I would like to give an overview and talk about the primary arguments. So the book argues that language policies are complete text, and contextualization and taking long-term considerations and perspectives are very necessary to find out the outcomes of different language policies. It also shows how different socio-cultural and political actions and economic forces play their roles into impact educational reform and policy making. And in the United States, in this regard, it also considers different historical analysis, rhetorical analysis, and archival materials. At the end of the book, in the final chapter, Scott Weibel left us some recommendations how we can make language policies toward more socially equitable and inclusive goals. In short term, we can say he leaves us different materials and shows us the way how archival research can be turned into action research. Okay, let's get moving on to the chapters. So before getting into the chapters, I'd like to talk about intervention in the history of rhetoric and writing instructions. So in three broad spectrum, the book investigates, or the investigation of the book's the findings challenge our perceptions about the efficacy of a specific policies drafted in different eras or different times since 1970. And it also demonstrates how policy statements can lead to pedagogical interventions. We'll talk about it later, how different policy language advocacy groups came up with different policies and they turned those policies into different actions in the classroom or in different greater area. And also it shows language policy statements as catalysts for change. Okay, so I'm talking about the chapters. The book is divided into 5 chapters, but this is organized in a very non-traditional way. The first chapter is not chapter 1, is actually the introduction or the introductory chapter. And the second, third, and the fourth chapters are numbered as chapter 1, 2, and 3. And there is no fourth chapter, it's the conclusion or the final chapter. Okay, talking about the chapters, the first one, which is actually introduction, it situates language policy within compositions past, present, and future. It starts from 1970s and then it ends in the recent times. So the first chapter or the introductory chapter defines Weibel's study motives along with the contextual, historical, and evidential underpinnings. And this introductory chapter lays the foundation of 2 major questions that actually helped formulate Weibel's argument. So the first question is why the profession, that means teaching writing or the profession of teaching writing, is suffering from the confusion between multilingual pedagogical interventions and real world demands of English language competency. And the second question that he poses is why are these discussions about confusions among different professions or professionals, historical impacts of language policies, and deliberate or unintentional turn a blind eye situation matters in formulating or just creating a very congenial atmosphere for multilingual American education system. Okay, moving on to number chapters. Chapter number 1, the language curriculum research degree. And it traces historical context of language policy analysis as a multidisciplinary endeavor. And Scott Weibel starts with historical research and uses different drafts by Language Curriculum Research Group in Brooklyn College. And he also explores different composition or professions continuing confusion about whether 1974 CC's position statement, whether they are transferred into real life classroom. And it examines if these 1974 SRTOL or students write to their own language is a progressive theory divorced from actual classroom practice or just a statement on the paper. And also, he examines if the composition professors are or are not rethinking their responsibilities to the students. Now, chapter 2 is the real deal. Chapter 2 is full with archival research. It draws on archival materials, texts published by LPC, language policy, policy committees. It uses different drafts, different policy drafts, different legislation letters, different textbook materials, different instructor training materials, and explores the understanding of the national language policies. And it also illustrates the need to access the influence of NLP, National Language Policy Committees, across a longer period of time. And it also examines and explores language policies are not just text, and he cross-references the primary text, which are different documents drafted in different era, and also comparing them with the secondary materials. In this case, secondary materials are different reactions to the different policies, reactions from teachers, reaction from different professionals, reaction from the common public, or different educators. And also there are some questions that he wants to explore, that how has the archival materials served as a guiding path to action research. This is a great takeaway from this chapter. And also this chapter focuses on the three main things, which is literacy education, linguistic rights, and language policy. Okay, moving on to chapter 3. So chapter 3 is very, very interesting. So if you do not know, DoD's critical needs language initiative or critical need language policy or something like that. So George W. Bush Jr. came up with the brilliant idea that high school students or college students need to learn like other languages to make it more congenial to the immigrants, and also to make the Americans more competent in foreign language. But basically, it's an assumption. It's just an instrument in recruiting more army personnel with more knowledge of different foreign language, aimed to overpower those foreign lands in war or in diplomacy. Because if you know the language of your enemy, you can think ahead of them, or you can just defeat them with your ideas or with your war. And the first proposal came with different, you can see the language list: Arabic, Chinese, Hindi, Indonesian, Korean, Persian, Russian, and Turkish. And also these Bush administration spent 140 millions for these projects, and later Department of Education encapsulated or incorporated these into different scholarships. And still, if you visit different universities' website, they promote it, and they give a scholarship to students to go to a foreign country, and it's an exchange program for one semester or even 1 year. And it's a full ride, and it's paid by the Department of Education or Department of Homeland. Okay, so historical materials used by Scott Whittle. So he uses a lot of historical materials, different drafts, SRTL statements, LPC's letters, outreach documents, and textbook references. He also uses cross-referencing methods that we do in research. And also he analyzes primary text in comparison to later research and secondary text as reports, legislation letters, documents, policy drafts, Congress bills, etc. And if you want me to evaluate the book, yes, the book is great. And the contribution that it makes into our present area of knowledge is that it reframes the definition and the implementation of language policies into action. That's the most or significant contribution that the book makes. And it also transfers values, support and sustain the language resources from composition and rhetoric studies field to another fields such as communication, public administration, policy making, or like other fields. And it also shows how these research practices can be productively applied to address real world needs or issues. And moreover, or overall, it offers fantastic critical analysis of three language policies debates by weaving them together in historical, rhetorical, and archival context. And I highly recommend it. If you want to know more about US language policy, please read it. If you want to know more about jury's controversial critical language needs policy or national security language initiative, read it. If you want to learn how you can turn your archival research into action research, read it, because it shows the way and the methods how you can do it. Even the cat in the picture reads it. So yeah, he must have found a great sentence that he needs to underline. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to leave your questions. I will really appreciate your comments and feedback too. And thanks for watching.